All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, in case you didn't notice, and it's time for the Malzberg panel. And joining us right now, president and founder of New Heights Communications, Christy Setzer, and host of well, actually, we do not have Roger Hedgecock, ladies and gentlemen, but we do have our friend, as I believe. I'm just checking to see who we have, and we have Edmund Wright. Hello, Edmund. How are you? Sorry about that. I knew Roger wasn't here, but the prompter. The only thing I use a prompter for on this show is the guests and the names, so I wouldn't go draw a blank. And it said Roger, who was supposed to be with us, and I couldn't put forth who was there. But you're both there, so let me start with what we were talking about, and let me start with Christy, ladies first. We just heard from Kendall Coffey that he believes it's a very ominous sign that the Supreme Court has rushed, in effect, to take on this Obamacare case regarding subsidies, and he thinks that expediting the matter, plus on the merits, he believes that it's going to be bad news, or could very well be bad news for the Obama administration. What do you think?
I don't know about that. I mean, look, there was the ruling today in Malzberg, or actually that was the one that was last week. But basically, there were two rulings in very close succession that essentially came to different conclusions as to whether or not people who are in the federal exchange should get federal tax credits or not. If they don't, if Americans are not going to receive these federal tax credits, that means they're going to be paying up to $5,000 more a year per family. So I think it's something that we should be worried about. And I think it's a problem that Republicans are fighting to raise taxes on the millions of American families by an average of nearly $5,000 a year. So I don't think
Edmund, I mean, if it's unconstitutional and that's not the way the law was written, it's not going to raise taxes on people. It's going to gut Obamacare.
Yeah, well, and we should hope that it does gut Obamacare. There's no telling for sure, but I think it's probably a good sign, maybe not for the Obama administration, but for the rest of the country, that they are expediting it. And as we know, the Supreme Court does watch election returns. So I would say when you put those two things together, I think it probably is pretty worrisome for the Obama administration now. But again, the proper way to look at this is an unconstitutional bureaucratic disaster, and it needs to be trashed.
Wow.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead, Christy.
Well, I was just going to say,
I was going to say that every candidate, every Republican senatorial candidate ran against Obamacare. And if the Supreme Court...
No, they didn't. That's the thing, is that I think that Republicans thought a year ago that they would be running on Obamacare and the disaster that it was. And they were noticeably silent. They were notably silent.
No, they were not noticeably silent. Every single candidate ran against Obamacare.
Yeah, they mentioned it, but this was not a major platform of anyone's anyone's campaign. And that's because it's working. That's because nobody wants to take benefits away from millions of people who are getting health care now.
Christy, Christy, it's the exact opposite. The sooner they jumped on the anti-Obamacare bandwagon, the bigger they won. Joni Ernst was on it. She won by 9. Cory Gardner was on it. He won by 6.
Yeah, I mean,
Tom Tillis was late. Tom Tillis was late to the game, and he barely won. The longer they talked about Obamacare and the more they talked about Obamacare, the bigger their margin of victory all across the country.
I think that's not true. I think we can talk for a long time about why Democrats didn't win on Tuesday, and I think it's because they didn't articulate their message strongly enough.
Right? Christy, if you look at the polls, every single issue that Obama puts forth, the country thought that the nation was heading in the wrong direction by 70%. They don't like Obama's policies. By the way, 75% said after leaving the polls that Obama should not go with an executive order on immigration. Yeah. Obama doesn't care, and the Democrats didn't care. Let me give you statistics. Every single newly elected Republican senator ran on full repeal of Obamacare. They ran over 40,000 ads against Obamacare. The winning candidates did. So how could you say it wasn't a major issue?
It wasn't a major issue. Again, it wasn't a major issue in the way that people thought that it was going to be, say, a year ago. And again, I think the only mistake that Democrats made was in not articulating the benefits of Obamacare strongly enough. I think the senators like, Kay Hagan and others, Michelle Nutt in Georgia, et cetera, particularly Democrats in the South, who ran away from the president did themselves a disservice and consequently lost.
Oh my gosh! What about it, Edmund?
No, that's ridiculous. I mean, the Republican establishment, and they are a bunch of clueless consultants, they kind of thought what Christy thought, that it wouldn't be a big issue. But the reality of the American people finally trumped it. And had they run harder against Obamacare from day one, it would have been worse Tuesday night than it was for Democrats. But as you said, Steve, all the candidates who figured it out in time won, and it was a major issue.
Guys, we're coming. We're going to have you guys back we're going to have you guys back. But first, I'm going to speak with Iowa Congressman Steve King in the next segment. And again, I apologize to see Edmund Wright for not having his name on the top of my brain. We're coming back.